So what do experts believe? How should India be tackling China? Let me bring in Lobsang Sangye. He's the former president, that's Sikyong, of the Tibetan government in exile. Many thanks, Dr. Sangye, for speaking with NDTV. My first question is with regards to the renaming of places in Arunachal Pradesh that China has undertaken. It's done so before in 2017 and in 2021. Why do you think this time around they've undertaken the same exercise again?
This is a well-planned strategy of the Chinese government because they want to be number one in the world and they see India as a potential number two, and they want to make sure that India is put in place. And I have been on the record that if there is a war between India and China, it won't be most likely not in Doklam or in Galwan, but in Arunachal Pradesh, because they are better prepared. They have better infrastructure. They have a military airfield. There's a military township across Arunachal Pradesh in Tibet, and also railway line connecting from China to Lhasa to Arunachal, border of Arunachal Pradesh. So that's why, this is a way to, they're not renaming, but they're rather reviving the old traditional names of all these places, and thereby making a legal case. If they have to go to the International Court of Justice to say that, look, we have a track record of all the tax records, administrative records to show that these are the places that belong to Tibet. Now, India calls Tibet an autonomous region of China, thereby giving them the legitimacy. So if Tibet is part of China, as per India, then these areas belong to Tibet and hence belong to China. That is their claim. And in 1914, as per the similar agreement, we made it very clear that through the demarcation, Megmon line was drawn, and this area, which China claims to be part of China now, actually we ceded to India. So it is, the area that belongs to India, but similar agreement was signed by Tibet. Now,
So,
Indian government has to recognize.
Dr. Sangye, are you suggesting then that this is a clear means that China is using to create new realities on the ground and hoping that they can legitimize it later on?
Oh, yes. I think, they are reclaiming this based on Tibetan documents, right? So they are setting a precedent now. So if there is a war and if they fight over Arunachal and take over Taiwan, they will say this land belonged to us all along. Now, Indian government has to come out and say no. Similar agreement was signed, and this territory was ceded by the government of Tibet to India. To do that, now government of India must give some recognition to Central Tibet administration as a legal entity which reflects and represents Tibetan people, so they can be spokesperson on Tibet and Tibetan people.
Dr. Sangye, you've often warned India of the 5 fingers of Tibet strategy of China. Do you believe that they are actually trying to execute this strategy?
Oh, yes, they've been, doing it since 1950s. 1962 war in Arunachal, and then 1967 war attempted in Sikkim area. Now, all the 5 fingers, Nepal is under pressure, Ladakh is under pressure, Bhutan is under pressure, Sikkim is under pressure. Now, increasingly so, Arunachal Pradesh is under pressure. So 5 fingers is not only their strategy, it's in full implementation. And then of the naming of all the places, the first area, right, Pangchen, that, borders Chona in Tibet Autonomous Region, right? And that is in close proximity to Bhutan. So thereby, renaming Tibetan name Pangchen, definitely, Doklam and Bhutan is also made into a case.
So, Dr. Sangye, then that brings me to my next question. Then is it very intrinsically linked, the moves that we've seen recently, to the China-Bhutan boundary talks that are on and which look on track at the moment and could be worrisome for India in the context of what you just mentioned, Doklam?
Absolutely. Bhutan is clearly under pressure. I'm sure this carrot and stick approach is going on as far as Bhutan is concerned. And, given the pressure, now they have to deal with, China. And then if China is brought into the equation, what happens is that they will be dealing on the basis of Tibetan documents, Bhutan, right? And then Chinese government will say, now Bhutan has set a precedent and recognized these old Tibetan names of these places. Similarly, the renaming of these places in Arunachal Pradesh should be valid. So that is their strategy.